This is Leatherass for StoxPoker.com. Today's video is two tables of 50 cent, $1, no limit, 6 max. I'm also going to do a little bit of poker tracker at the end of the video, and we can go over some of the big pots and go over some of the percentages and what I feel is a good percentage to be at. So I'm just going to wait to sit in here. Whoops, it looks like I didn't get a seat at the screen on your right, so we're going to pull up another one. And I may just post the blinds here just for the video purposes on the one on the left. And I think I'll do so for the one on the right as well. So actually I have numbers on this guy Wolfie. He looks pretty tight. You know, some guys take shots at higher limits, and that's probably how I got these numbers from him. Other than that, it doesn't look like I'm going to have numbers on anybody at this point. Okay, so I get ace-5, and there's an under-the-gun raiser, and he's somewhat short-stacked, so I'm just going to have to let it go. The king-9, that's good enough for me to just go ahead and try to steal. There's already $2.50 in the pot, and so I figure that's worth going after. So I get two callers, ace-high flop, pretty dry board outside of the flush draw, but I get led into... I could possibly continue on and just raise him. I do have a guy left act behind me. I think the best play for now is just to go ahead and let it go. Sometimes when somebody leads in like that, I'll raise them when it just looks so weak, and we have a deeper stack. So I figure that I have some pretty decent fold equity. But there was a guy left act behind me, and so that definitely factored into my decision as well. And I always like to keep it reloaded to the max. So that's what I was doing there on the table on the right. So it looks like we have sort of varying stacks on both tables. This guy is 67, 62, 42, but then there's a full stack guy, and now a guy sat in with the minimum buy-in. There's a limper here. I'm going to go ahead and raise him and just try and come after him a little bit. I think at this limit you can probably play pretty lag, and so that's what I'm going to do today is just I'm probably going to be raising a lot of pots and coming after guys a little bit. I've talked about how I think playing in the smaller stakes games, like smaller, like more like micro, I guess, like maybe $25, maybe even $50 no limit and below. I think just playing a nice, tight, solid game is gets the job done. And in these sort of like smaller to medium stakes, like 100, 200 no limit, I think lag works really well from my experience. And then once you get higher stakes, you kind of need to just be mixing up your play and playing a lot of lag and tag and just keep your opponents guessing. But I've noticed that at 100 no limit and 200 no limit, I think lag works really well. Because people you can kind of run them over. Most people, they think they're playing kind of correctly and just kind of playing tight. And, when you re-raise them, they're tossing away their medium strength hands. And I feel like you can kind of push people around a lot. At higher limits, people will adjust, and at super low limits, they just call anyway. So this is, to me, kind of the sweet spot for playing a lag sort of style. That's definitely what yielded me the best results, at least for me personally. So I'm going to go ahead and raise the ace-queen. That's pretty standard. I would make it 4, but there was a limper, so I added 1. So I get called by a guy with 20. I think I'm just going to shove this flop. I don't really know what else I can do. I mean, if I bet pot or something, or just under pot, I can't really get away from it. So I'm just going to put them all in. If he has something, then good for him. Okay, so he called with jack high. I'll take it. The jack 9 here, I get raised. I'm just going to go ahead and let it go here. So it looks like this guy I have a few numbers on. So let me go over them. The 19 is the voluntary put money in pot. The 17 here is his pre-flop raise. The 58 is his the number of hands I have on him. And the 00 there is an infinity aggression factor, so we just don't have enough hands on him to really establish one yet. So I raised the 9-3 suited, and I made a continuation bet and got called. Now I'm just going to shut down. Yeah, I'm not gonna fire there. So the other numbers I have, the 100 is folded to flop bet. The 0 number there is went to showdown. I'm going to raise the 7-9 suited. The 47 is folded big blind, excuse me, attempt to steal, and the 100 is folded big blind to steal. So I'm going to follow up on the 7-9 with a bet, and he quickly calls. I'm not going to fire again. I'm just going to shut down. And now that he bets 25, it's a very easy fold. This guy's folded big blind to steal is really high. It's 100. It's not a lot of hands, but he's pretty tight, so I'm just going to go ahead and raise pretty much any 2 on his button. So as we're going here, I'm kind of collecting the poker tracker data, and we're going to be going over that periodically, and I'm also going to go over deeper into the video what my numbers are for the session, and then I can kind of keep tabs on myself so that I know how my opponents are perceiving me during the session, because nobody really has any reads on me first. I've never played with any of these people before except for a couple of these guys, but it's probably been a long time since that's happened, and I only have a few hands anyway. Queen 9 suited, I'm going to raise under the gun. And 4-7 suited, that'd be a little loose under the gun. I'm going to pass on that one. So 6-2 suited, I'd like to punish the limpers, but Cheerio has 19 bucks, and I just don't really see what kind of fold equity I have there. With the 6 deuce, with the 4 to the flush, I'm just going to go ahead and lead out. You wouldn't think any of these guys would have an ace, so doesn't look like they did. I'm going to raise the 5-7 off again. We're just going to keep coming after this guy. I want to get him mad. I want him to play really poorly against me later when I actually have a hand. So we're just going to keep doing it to him. And we may see him fight back a little bit. He might like limp re-raise me or something like that, but chances are he won't adjust too well. He looks like it's just pretty much a loose passive. If he was a loose like calling station type guy that just calls with anything, then I probably wouldn't do this to him as much because I wouldn't have any fold equity, but he looks like the type that just pretty much plays fit or fold. Why not? Let's do it again. Okay, so I probably will stab at this one. Actually, both of them on the that you're seeing. And the screen on the left is just standard continuation bet. On the right, it's a paired board, and I just feel that, you know, there's not a whole lot they can have. So this is interesting here. I may fire again. It looks like he's thinking about it. I think I'm just going to have to continue with it. If he calls here, I don't think I can fire again on the river. I think he's pretty much in call down mode if that happens. Okay, so I'm going to give up. With the ace came, I just figured that'd be a good bluff card. You know, at the same time, it's not so good because if he has a queen, he might think, oh, I have an ace kicker now. So, you know, he might put in a call. So it's tempting to want to bluff this, but I only have a half pot bet, and I'm just going to give up on it, and we'll kind of use it as an image play. So looks like I'm not getting a whole lot of credit right now. He definitely wasn't buying it that I had the ace there. So, and I bet he was willing to stack off if he called the turn with less than top pair. So we're going to have to keep that in mind. Definitely a image play. Some of their suspicions turned out to be correct, that I was just kind of messing around, raising pots up and so forth. So the trick will be to kind of hopefully pick up a hand and also to be a little careful now that I've been caught. But for now, I'm just going to keep on going. And basically, if we do have a hand, it looks like all we need to do is have somebody make any sort of pair, and they're calling me down. So he does his weak lead. We're going to test this weak lead out here and just go ahead and raise him. If he doesn't have a king, this is going to be a tough call. Okay. So it looks like that weak lead by him is nothing. King 7 suited. Tempting, but that might be a little loose. I could probably go for a little break. I've played quite a few pots in a row now. Okay, so ace 6 suited. I'm just going to pass this time. And Wolfie, he's really tight. He likes to limp. I'm just going to come after him. You know, more than likely, it's just a pocket pair of some kind or some kind of suited connector he's not going to hit with. So if I don't take it down pre-flop, I can continuation bet and take it down often enough to be an okay play. I'm going to pass on the 10-9 suited. This has $5 left. The end of the gun limper. Okay, so I flop top pair here. It's a weak top pair. He makes a quick call. I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to check and just kind of see what he does. And for $3, I'm certainly going to call. And we'll check the river. And I'm going to call him down. Okay, so he turned me there. he's just kind of giving me a price that I couldn't really pass up there. I felt that I was probably going to call the turn even if he made a sizable bet, because I just think a hand like ace deuce, ace three, is a pretty decent part of his range. So I was going to make him basically fired twice. I figure he might bet once, and then if I call him and then I check the river, he'll just check and take the showdown with a pair in his hand, if he does have like an ace two or ace three. So I feel like I can fold to a river bet there. So far, not doing too great. 41 hands, I am 36% VPIP and 36% pre-flop raise. So pretty loose start. But I generally play very lag at these limits. Above 30 pre-flop VPIP and usually just under 30 for pre-flop raise. That said, I think a very basic tight style is a very good way to go also at these limits. I just feel like a lag style is optimal if you have a really strong post-flop game for these limits. And I can certainly, okay, so I flop a straight draw. Just going to make a continuation bet, $7 into a $10 pot. But yeah, I'm going to, this video I'm going to go ahead and make a lag sort of video. And I'm going to kind of go off what you guys say in the forums or in the thread that will be about this video, as to whether I should continue playing lag style for these videos, or if you want me to play more of a straightforward tag style. It's entirely up to you guys, of course. So I just want to do what the majority of the people want. So please give me feedback. Some people I can easily see a lag style just not being something that necessarily everyone's comfortable with, so they might want to see more of a straightforward tag style, and I can certainly make those videos as well. Ace-8 suited, under the gun, min raise. I could argue for coming along here. Nobody's too aggressive behind me, so I'm unlikely to get re-raised. I could also make an argument for re-raising, but I'm just gonna call for now. I think folding's okay. Calling I think is a pretty good option given how passive everyone is behind me. Okay, so I flop middle pair. And he bets 4 into 5. I'm going to put in a call and see what he does. If he can bet the turn, I'm pretty much going to have to give it up. So, yeah, there's not a whole lot I can do there. I can put in one call with second pair, but my hand just can't withstand a lot of heat. And he's firing from after making under the gun raise, and he fired twice out of position, so got to give him some credit. Wasn't really the flop I was looking for. I was more or less looking for obviously some diamonds or flopping top two, stuff like that. A lot of it is just kind of playing my position and kind of hoping that a few more people would have come along, so I'd have a nice multi-way pot. So if I do make a flush or something like that, I stand to win a large pot. It wasn't really ideal just to have it heads up with him. You know, but again, I wouldn't fault folding pre-flop either. It was more or less just a function of the table being so passive was the reason I put in a call. Okay, so the fives, I'm just going to go ahead and re-raise them all in. And the ace-9, I'm going to open. Okay, so I'm going to have to give up here. I'll get ready to reload there. It's kind of a bad flop. Well, I got my money in pretty good, though. You know, I kind of expected just to kind of be in a coin flip a lot of the time. Occasionally behind, occasionally ahead. He was so short, you know, a lot of times if a guy gets that short, I'm going to raise. This guy's never even played a pot. A lot of times I don't mind just seeing guys like that leave, so I'm kind of looking for an opportunity to just knock them out from the table. So maybe, if you know, he's either going to have to reload to a more decent amount, or he's going to leave and hopefully somebody comes with a fuller stack. So that also was part of the reason I called. I don't necessarily know if it was positive EV or not to raise all in, but you know, getting rid of him would have been nice too. Okay, so this guy is pretty passive. I don't see him check raising me with a worse hand or a big draw or anything, so I feel like I should just bet and protect my hand. Alright, so the queen's here. I'm going to go ahead and re-raise, and if I get played back at, I'm going to go ahead and play for stacks, pre-flop even if need be. Okay, so pretty awful flop, but I'm going to have to continue, and if he calls or raises me, I'm done with the hand. Okay, so that's unfortunate. You don't expect him to be calling there. Threes, I'm going to go ahead and make 5. Okay, so we got a set here. Let's just hope Flitz has the ace and not Cheerio. Let's just hope somebody has anything at this point. It's not exactly setting the world on fire right now. So I'm going to bet 11 and do, I believe it was like 14 or 15. Okay, so I'm just going to put his last $2 in. All right. Well, a little something. I'd have preferred Flitz had the stack, but you know, it would be nice to get rid of Cheerio as well. So far now we're at a 39 VPIP and a 37 pre-flop raise, so definitely running on the loose end. I'm normally not this loose. We need to keep this in mind when our opponents play back at us. It may not necessarily be with a whole lot. Definitely going to have to be willing to get it in light if need be, because I don't think I'm going to be getting a whole lot of credit right now. So I'll let the 6-8 suited go. Alright, looks like Cheerio rebought. I'm going to go ahead and raise up the deuce 6 of the limper. So we'll just try to isolate him. Okay, so we're starting to get the first time where we're getting played back at a little bit. He did sort of a limp min raise. I'm going to let him have it right now. I really don't have, I'd maybe call the pocket pair there or something. Deuce 6 is not, even suited. Maybe if we were deep in position, I would take a flop there, but we're not even that deep, so I really can't make a case for continuing on. Okay, so I'm getting some numbers now. So this Kinneging, who has 180 blinds now, is a 78 VPIP and a 75 fold to flop bet. So this guy's like my dream. When he flops something, he's going to probably just in a 36 went to showdown. So he's going to be calling down a lot when he flops anything. And if he has nothing, it looks like he just folds. So just sort of a typical loose passive calling station. I mean, this guy is just, this is your bread and butter right here. He has literally the best imaginable numbers for making money with a lag style. Okay, so I'm going to bet 5 into 8. Pretty dry flop. Wow. I don't see how I can not fire again. At the same time, he is kind of in call down mode, but I just have to do it. Okay. I mean, I just can't. I mean, I know I don't get a whole lot of credit, but my gosh, I mean, if he is calling me down with like, a pair of 7s there or something, which it looks like he, my guess would be that's what he had. I don't even think he had a 9 on the flop. He's kind of quickly called. So I know I don't get a whole lot of credit, but I felt like that was a good second barrel opportunity. I'm just going to bet, min bet the open-ended draw there. And this should be pretty ideal for raising on the King Jack. He did that min sort of bet, which I don't think means much. And I'm going to check behind on the Deuce 7. Okay, so now that I make top pair, I don't think he's going to call me again if he does have like a 6. And if he has a 10, he's probably going to check raise me. I'm just going to fold the D7. And so I think my best bet is just to check behind and then value bet the river or call a river bet. If he does have a 6, if I bet the turn, I'm probably not going to get much. Boy, I could make a pretty thin value raise here. You know what? I think I'm just going to call. It might look like a last-ditch bluff, though, too. This is tough. This is pretty close. I'm just going to call. Okay, so he flopped a full house. Just terribly played by him. It's kind of interesting that he had no decision on the flop because I made that raise and he just instantly called. He didn't even think about maybe re-raising or anything like that. That's pretty strange. Queen 9, I'm going to go ahead and raise. Okay, so I get re-raised, so I can be done with the hand there. Alright, aces on both tables. Now's where we want them to not believe me. Okay, so it'd be pretty unfortunate if we set up this image and I only get $4 out of my aces. So let's just hope he has anything. Okay, so that should be a really good turn card. We'll hope. So I'm going to bet close to pot here because it's pretty much my only way to win a big pot is to start to build one. I don't think he's going to fold a queen. Okay, so he probably didn't have very much. He might have been calling down with, the flop with, an ace-4 or like, who knows, jack-5. I mean, he could have anything. He's a 80 VPIP. I don't see what else I can do but let the king-10 go now. So that's a bit unfortunate. Usually a lot of the benefit of sometimes playing a little crazy, splashing around a lot of pots is that when you do have a hand like such as aces or something like that, you generally just get an abnormal amount of action. In fact, when I was playing 200 no limit and 400 no limit, I was winning something like 8 poker tracker big bets per hand on average with aces, which is incredible. I don't think I've ever got more than like 5 or 6 from aces, probably like 6 at the most. And it's just because I was always setting up my image, so I would win these huge pots of aces all the time. To only get a flop bet, that kind of hurts. And then on the other table, I don't think I got anything. So that really has a big impact on the session because, especially when I start off so loose. I'm over a 40 VPIP, 40 pre-flop raise right now. So to set up that kind of image and get no action, relatively no action with the aces, it's going to make it, I haven't really made any hands either, so it's going to make it tough to have a really good session when, you get those 2 great opportunities and they just completely go to waste. Okay, so it looks like he's disconnected here on the top right screen. So we'll just keep doing it to Kinning. He's not going to adjust, I can already tell you that much. He's just bad. He doesn't even really probably know how to handle this. We'll just keep it up. If you want to limp, you're going to pay. One off the button here is 7-4 suited. I'm going to raise it. Okay, so we're all in here. I flopped a pair and a draw. I have good equity against anything he might have, so if he wants to play a pot, I'm going to be willing to put my money in. So last time he min-bet the nuts, so his min-bet just, I don't even know what to make of it. It's the nuts, it's the, it's nothing, who knows. We know if he quick calls your after min-betting that he has a full house. I'm just going to raise the jack-3. Pretty good flop. If he doesn't have a king, should be tough to continue. He's got to be getting frustrated. I can't imagine people just like getting run over. I know I didn't when I used to be more of a loose passive player when I was first starting, so we'll just keep it up. Eventually I'm going to make some kind of hand. I would hope. Okay, so he calls. I'm going to go ahead and check behind on the ace-10. And, he could have had the flush or, like queen-10. There are some hands I beat. I think I'm just going to give it to him here. Wow, he is just so loose passive. I'm gonna pop up the 7-8 suited. This is getting almost kind of comical. It's just I'm raising every pot. I mean, I play loose at times, but this is this is pretty funny. Okay, I'm gonna let him have it. You can have one pot today, Kinning. Oh boy. I wish I could say I was laughing all the way to the bank, but I'm not even doing that either. I'm just laughing because it's just funny. But I'm getting kind of beat down here. Again, Wolfie's very tight. I'm just going to steal with any two on with the 10-7. Okay, so that didn't work. Looks like it got a pretty tight table on the left, so. Okay, so we're up over a 46 VPIP, 45 pre-flop raise. Alright, so this guy's played pretty much one or two hands, 0 pre-flop raise since we've sat with him. Ace-Jack is an easy muck. Yeah, I can just see getting Kinning stack with just about anything if I can ever just kind of make a hand. I'm just going to go ahead and call with the ace-3 suited. I don't mind taking a flop with him in position with a hand like that. Whoa boy. Okay, let's hope he has anything. I could see him going broke with a lot of hands here. Alright, the king 10 I'm all in if he do. I have an open-ended straight. Okay, so that's just kind of unfortunate there. I finally got my hand and with my image and then not even a dime at post flop. But that's the way it goes sometimes. It doesn't always work out in your favor. It'd be pretty funny if I can squeak out a winning session here if it's almost a 50 VPIP. 45 pre-flop raise. That's what I'm at the moment. 47, 45, and then we'll go over that all before we conclude the video. Alright, so I'm not gonna do it this time with 10-4. This guy's getting somewhat short stacked, and I don't know, I haven't seen him limp before. He might be setting up a limp re-raise or something silly, so I just passed on that time. Okay, so let's see, on this table I'm 47-45. On this table I'm 47-47. So my image should be pretty similar on both tables. Something to keep aware of. I like clicking on my name every so often on the tables, and sometimes I look over and some tables I'm like a 10 VPIP and like 6 pre-flop raise after like 60 hands. So I just need to keep in mind that that's sort of the way my opponents perceive me. Other tables I look over and I click on it and it's like a 30, 25 or something like that. And these are the bigger stakes games I'm talking about. So I'm going to pass on the jack too. But it's just something to keep in mind, and it's actually very important, is to understand how your opponents perceive you so you can interpret their actions better. Okay, so I have bottom pair here. And I'm just going to go ahead and give it up there. Okay, time to get it going again here. The ace-5. So I fought bottom pair. Looks like he's grinding on this one. I may not be getting a fold here, but it doesn't always mean much. Sometimes he's just, you know, he could be doing anything. I'm just going to go ahead and make a fold here. I'm getting a great price, but, you know, the 7-8 just got there if he had that. I'm going to isolate with the ace-3 suited. I got to figure I'm drawing to like 5 outs with no fold equity at any point. So I'm just going to go ahead and get out of there. And we'll go ahead and pop it with the king-8 suited. Okay, so quickly floated on the button. It does hit his floating range pretty hard. But, you know, I have at least a little something here. I'm going to go ahead and bet it out. Huh. So I could put him on. I could see him having some sort of 7. He could have the 9. I guess it'd be like 9-10. I'm going to actually bet one more time. You know, he also might have been just calling with some sort of pair. It's somewhat of a good card, hopefully, for me on the turn. Okay, so that was a disaster. My sort of plan there was if something hit like a queen or a 2 or something that's just a total brick, I was likely going to check call because I don't think he'd value bet a 9 that thin. And that's why I bet the turn to sort of set up that river decision where I could possibly induce a big mistake from him. But now that the 5 hit, it's that what I can beat has just become so little. I think I'm going to have to check fold. I would think with any sort of pair he would just take the showdown. So I think if he bets, he's probably going to have the straight. I believe it's 14 and gives me like, you know, 1,000 to 1 on my call. Not really, but boy, I just, you know, it stinks because, you know, you'd think he'd make more of a sizable bet if he had the 7. I can't imagine him value betting a 9 that thin. I mean, I don't see why he would do that. But then again, I don't see why he would call. Gosh, could he have Jack 10? This is... oh boy. Just trying to make sense of all this. There's no way he wouldn't raise like a full house at some point if he flopped a set. Oh boy, I'm going to pay him off. Let's just see it. Oh boy, he did. Very oddly played. You know, that could be, I don't know, I got to think one time out of, you know, with the price he was giving me, one time out of 5 or 6 or whatever, my price on that call was he's going to have Jack 10. So I don't really think my call was bad. It was just tough to, you know, a lot of it too is a function of the limits. I don't really, like, nobody would ever play a hand that way, you know, at the limits I play. So to try to interpret that action was not super easy for me. So I'm just going to continue to value bet here. I can't imagine why I wouldn't have the best hand. So anyway, that may have been a terrible call. I don't know how I feel about the way I played that one just yet, but I feel like, you know, I played it reasonably decent, and I hope I explained the logic as to why I made the turn bet. I hope I explained that well enough. I just felt that I really wanted to set him up for bluffing the river if he did have a hand with a 7 in it, you know, and if obviously the straight didn't get there. And then I pretty much figured I was done with the hand, but then when he bets that price, you know, maybe I'm supposed to interpret it that he's just, it's like, please call me, you know, I know that you hate that card on the river, and I want you to, I want to get some value out of you. I guess maybe I'm supposed to interpret that way. I don't know. But I would think every so often, these guys, none of these, this guy isn't any good, obviously. So I got to think one time out of 6, maybe he's trying to make some sort of, small bluff on the river, like a cheap bluff with a hand like Jack 10 or who knows. So that was sort of the logic there. I don't really feel too bad about it. Okay, so maybe this can be my spot here for kinning. I go ahead and make it 14. I really want to build a pot. I don't see him folding ever because I just don't think he really does that pre-flop. So I made a straight here, but the flush made it. So I'm going to go ahead and bet 20 with the kings, and I'm just going to give up on the 9-8. So that I bet you he goes broke there with pocket 8s through pocket queens every time. So kind of too bad he didn't have something there. Okay, so I pick up the flush draw. What I'm going to do is make a sort of small little blocking bet. I have the 2 overs and a flush draw. Don't know if the overs are good. Don't really know if anything's good. But I got to imagine all those are good for the most part. So I'm just going to bet 10, just try to get to the river cheaply. And every once in a while it works out as a good semi-bluff too, and you pick up the whole pot. So that worked out pretty well. The other reason for my crying call with the King 8 hand was that, these guys aren't going to be adjusting to how I play. 6-4 offsuit, I'm going to raise. He's so tight, so I'm going to get a fold, insta-fold just like that, a lot. I don't really know. They're not going to be adjusting to my play very well for the most part, and so I don't know what they're going to do. So a lot of times I do just kind of call down when it's even remotely close like that. So, that factored in as well. Okay, so my VPIP and preflop raises come down some. I'm now a 45-43. I think what I'm going to do actually is make these my last few hands. I'm going to play out the free hands. I'll raise 4-7 suited. And then we're going to go over Poker Tracker for the last few minutes of the video. I think this video may have run somewhat long, but I did want to, I like to make my lag videos somewhat longer because I want to talk about image and stuff like that and how it factors into later decisions when you've been sitting at a table for a while. So, my lag videos are probably going to run closer to an hour. Tag videos probably a little bit shorter. But, with the downloaded versions now, I guess we've had them out for some time, but just having those, you can pause and rewind, stuff like that. So, if I don't really feel if they run long, that's too big of a deal because you can always just be watching, half now and half later type things. So let me do my last import here, and then we'll go over. Okay. So I played 143 hands. We'll get over here to the left. I was a 44 VPIP, which is obviously extremely loose. That was more just a function of just having good position on just some extremely loose passive players on both tables. And my VPIP is almost always a function of the table. I'll almost never go higher than this, but I'll never really go lower than about 20, probably 20. But it's all just always going to be a function of the table. If I have loose passive limpers, my VPIP is going to be in the 40s, at least in the mid-30s. If I have a tough, table with some good players, I have to take more of a tight approach because you're getting raised and re-raised so often that if you start playing too loose and getting out of line, people will punish you for that, and that's not a fun thing to be doing at the higher limits. But at 100 no limit, I think, like I was talking about earlier, lag approach is pretty good. So we have a 44 VPIP. Pre-flop raise here, which is where I have my cursor, the third one from the far right, is a 43. I generally have my VPIP and my pre-flop raise pretty close together. I don't cold call a whole lot, although I sometimes do with pocket pairs, call or 3-bet, and occasionally with suited connectors, stuff like that. But for the most part, I like to just err on the aggressive side, so my VPIP and my pre-flop raise are generally pretty similar. My folded big blind to steal is usually about 83 or 4. 75 is probably better. It's something I need to work on. I'm not defending enough. So I think like high 70s is a pretty reasonable number. And folded small blind to steal is usually like 85 or 90 for me. One money when soft flop was pretty high. I'm generally like mid-40s with that. The results weren't that great. I lost under a buy-in, so it wasn't the end of the world. Usually a telling stat for how your session is going to be is what your one money at showdown is. And I played, somewhat of a different game at the higher limits. It kind of fluctuates a lot depending on what limit you're at. When I was playing like 100 and 200 no limit, it was just above 50. Like 50, 51. Now it's more like 55, but it's because I'm taking some different lines post-flop for the higher stakes games. But I think for this limit, 50, anything above 50 is probably just fine, and usually went to showdown like in the low to mid-20s. So kind of a bad combination when I'm in the teens on my went to showdown and in the 30s on my won at showdown, and that's just, I didn't have a good session, so that's kind of the way it tends to look. My aggression factor was pretty ridiculous. It was like a 15 overall. I didn't get to the river a whole lot, so I didn't really have an aggression factor there. But my turn is really high, was a 7. Flop 34, pre-flop 31. These are kind of ridiculous numbers. That's kind of a function of only playing 100 hands and not having a very large sample. I think a overall aggression factor of around 5, with your flop being about 5 or 6 or so, your turn being like 3 or 4, and your river being like 2 or 3 is probably best. So that's an extremely high aggression factor, and I wouldn't pay much attention to that. It does go up more as I play the lower limits, just because there are loose passive guys that will play fit or fold. And when I find guys like that, my aggression factor goes up pretty high. I believe my last decent sample I had at 200 no limit, my aggression factor was around an 8 or 9, the total aggression factor. But you just can't really have it that high unless you have a lot of loose passive sort of players. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed all that, and I'd really do appreciate some feedback. I want to know if this helps too, playing such a loose style, because obviously this was a little extreme, and it was, like I said, a function of the table. But I want to know if you guys enjoy the loose aggressive style, and I want to know if it really helps. If you'd like me to play more of a tag style sort of game, I can certainly do that. So please help me out with that in the forums. And for now, that's going to be the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it.